This is Energy Perspectives, a weekly podcast produced in Guyana that delves into the developments unfolding in the world's fastest growing economy.
Hi there. I am Kiana Wilberg, CEO of the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo. And today we are coming to you at the conclusion of day one of this impactful event that has brought together industry leaders and private sector entities from all parts of the world for critical discussions about Guyana's future and how we ensure that we leverage our resources not only for our prosperity but for the wider region. One of the key experts in country to help us with that discussion, and I'm truly honored to actually facilitate this conversation, is Sir Paul Collier, Professor of Economics and Public Policy at the School of Government, University of Oxford. Sir Paul, thank you so much for participating in this podcast. It's such an honor.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we actually just left a discussion between Vice President Bar Jagdeo, and he was being interviewed by Carlos Pascual of S&P Global. And there were a number of interesting questions and perspectives that came out there. For me, my takeaway was the question on whether the Vice President, who's the chief policymaker for Guyana's oil sector, is concerned about whether the market is going to be flooded with cheap oil and Guyana is racing to accelerate production, and if our market share will be taken away. And the Vice President said he's not worried at all. What was your take?
I thought that was very sensible. Basically, Exxon is risking their own money. Mm-hmm. Exxon, probably of all the major oil companies, Exxon are the biggest, most knowledgeable about the market. If they're prepared to risk their own money, it would, I think, be rather foolish of any government to say, well, we're protecting you from your own silliness.
Yes.
Because what does a government know that Exxon doesn't know? Exxon's got a vast team of very well-paid expert people trying to see what is a shrewd investment. If they think it's shrewd, okay, right? They may be wrong, right? But the idea that a little government will know better, and so should protect it from its own folly is ridiculous, right? The government needs to have expertise, and any government can only have so much expertise. It needs to put its efforts into areas where oil companies don't know much about because it's not their job. So, for example, the health sector. It's really important that the government gets its head round the health sector. Exxon doesn't know anything about the health sector. It doesn't have to. It's not delivering health, it's delivering oil.
Yes.
But this government showed that it had thought quite hard about health. There was a question about health, and I was rather impressed with the answer, because they had thought about it and they could justify the big investments they were making, partly in building new hospitals around the country, so that not all it shouldn't be the case that to be healthy you've got to move to Georgetown. So they were building, I think,
six regional
hospitals, and then rehabilitating quite a few. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty good, I thought. So that whole display of we're not worried about what will happen to the future of oil prices, and where we are worried about building the capacity in the health sector, that seemed to me rather sensible.
Before I dive into my substantive questions, was there any other question that came out from that dialogue that struck you as interesting?
I was particularly interested. There were quite a few questions about whether to carry on with this very large infrastructure program. And I thought that the Deputy President made a good effort to justify why the bulk of resources was going into infrastructure rather than into subsidizing consumption.
Is that a sensible approach?
It is, because infrastructure, first of all, the oil won't last forever.
Right.
Right? And so it's important that you, when you take the oil out from under the ground, you put some durable assets on top of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what infrastructure is. If you just take the oil out of the ground and subsidize consumption, that will be all right if all the oil income lasted forever, but it won't. It won't.
Mm-hmm.
In the best scenario, the oil depletes. But in the more likely scenario, some time in the future, probably from the mid-1940s on, the 2040s onwards, the price starts to sag. It'll hold up long enough for Exxon for it to be a decent investment, but it won't hold up forever. I mean, Sheikh Yemeni, the head of OPEC many years ago, said this very cleverly. He said, the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stone, right?
Yeah.
Why did the Stone Age end? Because technology found a cheaper way of a better technology for lighting fires than flint and that sort of thing, right? And we invented bricks and all that sort of stuff. So the technology will move on, and at some stage, maybe 20, 30 years, we'll be producing renewables which are cheaper than oil. And then oil's over. The market will just say, well, forget it.
But Sir Paul, what do you make of some opinions in some quarters that, you know what, we can't eat a highway, we cannot eat a bridge, we cannot eat a road. Why not give us some of that money in direct cash transfers?
No, I think that's a mistake. The answer is you can eat thanks to the highway, you can eat thanks to the road, because the highways and the roads will enable a lot more economic activity. And so it will open up an ability to earn your living. Just living on handouts from the gracious government is not a healthy state of affairs, even if it would last, and of course it can't last. And so rather than live on handouts, which is a bit demeaning anyway, nobody really wants to live on charity, it's better to be able to earn a decent living. And there's so many more business opportunities opened by decent roads and decent infrastructure, decent electricity and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Sir Paul. The last time you were in Guyana, I believe this was in 2018.
Yeah.
Right. And fast forward to 2025. What are your thoughts on how Guyana has transformed given its oil and gas resources?
Well, it is extraordinary. I mean, it's clearly the actual extraction of oil has been has broken the world record for moving from discovery to extraction.
Yes.
So that's technologically impressive. I think to some extent that's got ahead of the capacity to raise living standards. And so there's a certain sort of impatience that if all this activity is happening in extracting oil, why am I not benefiting more? So I think there is an element of impatience. And I think that's understandable, but the answer is to actually be a little patient and say, well, as these business opportunities open and the ability to earn goes up, that will improve situation quite remarkably. The figures coming through is that by about 2030, revenue per capita coming into the government will really be quite a lot. And if that's used for these investments in a better future, then people's ability to earn a decent living, acquire the skills of the future for the jobs of the future. That's the scenario that they're trying to build. Trying to see what will be the jobs of the future, the skilled jobs of the future. What skills will people need to do them? And let's equip people with the training that enables them to do these skilled jobs of the future. And they don't have to be great jobs of genius, you don't have to become a professor or anything. They're the skilled trades, like welding,
absolutely,
bricklaying, these things. And of course, no matter how clever IT is and all the rest of it, we're still going to have to weld things. We're still going to have to put one brick on top of another. And so we need skilled vocational training. And that's inclusive of everybody. Really, between the skills of the head and the skills of the hand, and the skills of the heart, because there'll be an awful lot of caring. They were talking about training a lot of nurses,
yes.
And the real skill in nursing is some skill in brain, some skill in hand, but a lot of skill in heart, right? What sort of nurse do you want to be cared for next time you're sick?
Indeed.
Somebody
Indeed.
who cares?
Absolutely. So, Sir Paul, you heard quite a lot about Guyana from the president, the direction in which the government wants to go. President Dr. Irfan Ali presented quite a comprehensive overview this morning on what the outlook is going to be for 2025 onward. And then we heard from the Vice President, of course, and from a women's panel. Do you get the sense that we are on the right trajectory?
Yes, I think I do, actually. I think it's truly impressive that you've been the fastest growing country in the world the last 5 years. I worked a lot many years ago with the government of Botswana, which for 20 years was the fastest growing country in the world. And my goodness, that has transformed the lives of a majority of Botswanans, very much so. They have vastly better lives now than their parents did. And I think that's going to be true in Guyana. I think the children of the present generation, they will be the beneficiaries of these jobs of the future. They'll be the ones who really do them. And if they pause, they'll say thank you to their parents.
Thank you, Sir Paul. I want to close by just getting your message. What message would you like to convey to policymakers in Guyana about the path forward as they navigate this critical juncture in Guyana's history?
Yes, so both the president and the vice president were honest in saying there'll be bumps in the road. Right? And that is music to my ears, because I much prefer to work with the minority of politicians who can admit a mistake, or admit that they didn't do everything perfectly. And the step from that, and I hope to be coming back and talking with, the Minister of Finance sort of inviting me back and that sort of thing, is a step from saying, well, there'll be bumps in the road, is to build a structure within the teams that you've got so that people are not afraid to speak truth to power, so that when things go wrong, the powerful people learn quickly about that it's going wrong, and then they can error correct. Right? So a degree of modesty, and I heard quite a lot of modesty today, especially from the President, and that's very healthy. It's the first step in the process of building a structure where you learn rapidly what mistakes you've made so that you can put them right as fast as possible.
So you find that we have a government that is willing to own its mistakes?
Yes, I think so. And that's a minority of governments, believe me. Right? So I was encouraged by that. I'll be coming back. If I wasn't encouraged, I wouldn't waste my time. But yeah, I'll be back.
Thank you so much, Sir Paul Collier. This has been such an honor, and we do look forward to welcoming you back to Guyana when you do make that next trip. So thank you once again to our audience. This has been a wrap-up of day one. Look out for more interviews, more insights from day two as we continue to interact with thought leaders who've gathered in Guyana for the Guyana Energy Conference and Supply Chain Expo.
Thank you for listening to the Guyana Energy Perspectives podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.